So, what is the deep state? This is a term that's been thrown around for a while now, and it's often being associated with Trump and Trump supporters and conspiracy theorists and people who are both Trump supporters and conspiracy theorists. And, it's being labeled as a conspiracy. There is no deep state. That's nonsense, I keep hearing. But wait a second. The way I've heard the term and used it myself, it's definitely not a conspiracy theory. It's an established, known thing and has been since long, long, long before Trump was a thing. So let's give a little bit of context, a little background. In the early days of the United States, they used to have something called the spoils system. When a new party came to power, they flushed out everyone else. Everyone lost their jobs. They put in their own people. And back in those days, the government was a lot smaller. You could do that. You could just get rid of everyone and then start appointing new people, and it wasn't that many people you needed. And in the meantime, the government's not working. That was okay. You didn't need one. I'm talking about the administrative state, not the military. Of course, the military would be there. And of course, in the early days of the U.S., the states were the ones that kind of maintained militias, and then if there was an invasion or something, the federal government will call on them for help. And there was a lot of people ready to go who had their own rifles. Back in those days, that's all you needed. You didn't need tanks or planes or nukes or any of the expensive stuff that the average person wouldn't have. It's very different. So, you had the spoils system. Well, fast forward to the days of Teddy Roosevelt, and he said, "Hey, this just leads to a lot of corruption. People are putting, their own people in. There's a lot of nepotism. They're not necessarily keeping the best people." So he convinced Congress to pass a law that said 25% of the government has to stay there, has to keep their jobs. You can only get rid of, there can only be as much as 75% turnover maximum. And in practice, the way this worked out was that basically everyone on the top, cabinet level officials, all got replaced, but down below, the average worker in the government stayed there. They would, it would be a career for a very long time. Now this gradually led to a different kind of corruption where they would work together kind of behind the scenes. They became kind of their own sub-government. Even though the boss comes in, changes, they only have so much time. There's only so much they can do, and everyone sticks together and kind of slows everything down. And especially when they started having public sector unions, that was another layer. They got all kinds of protections, makes it very hard to fire people. And I remember reading, in history books and stuff, Ronald Reagan dealt with problems from the deep state. There was people there who would leak stuff to the press to make him look bad, partial truths and stuff before he was ready, and the his political strategy and stuff, ready to release stuff. They would be leaking stuff to the press, and then Reagan would be caught off guard, and and then of course presidents figured out how to use leaks to their advantage, because maybe there's certain things you don't want to say publicly because it looks like you're giving too much away, you're bragging about yourself, whatever. But you convince one of your underlings, "Hey, leak this to the press," and uh, and then you let the press talk about it instead of you. It looks better. It's a political strategy thing. And I remember Bill Clinton dealt with this. There was leaks and stuff. And I remember George W. Bush. There was things he wanted to accomplish, and the bureaucracy would drag their feet and slow things down, and he couldn't get everything accomplished. And sometimes they would lose documents, and and um, and Obama dealt with this too. Um, there was Clinton holdovers that didn't like Bush that made things hard for him, and there were Bush holdovers that made things hard for Obama. And so this is what I'm used to. I'm already used to that being called the deep state, And when Trump came in and Trump talked about it, and well, actually, his supporters talked about it, and the way they talked about it, I immediately knew what they were talking about. And it's a known, established thing. Like, it's been in the news. Like, everyone knows this exists. It's not debatable. Now, there is one little wrinkle I need to add to this. In recent years, I've noticed some people talking about that's not the deep state, the administrative state. Deep state is something a little more specific. It's specifically the apparatus of like the intelligence agencies, especially the people who are paid off the books, who maybe aren't paid directly from taxpayer money, and they exist in the shadows, and they don't. And it's not clear where their loyalties are, but people are connected to the CIA and the FBI and so on. Um, and there's a lot of conspiracies there. So the thing is, we also know that exists. Now, do we know for a fact that there's this grand conspiracy that they're all involved as one big thing? Well, no, that would be conspiracy theorist talk. But we do know that over the course of the last, you know, 80 years, there have been many times that specific small conspiracies have been exposed. These are not debatable. This is established known history. There have been conspiracies, and we never caught all the people involved. And they're all connected, and so it would not be unreasonable to think that there's more going on today. And so for some people, that's what they're calling the deep state. And it almost certainly exists. It really doesn't make sense to call it a conspiracy theory. Uh, it's kind of like if you come across a river in the woods and I tell you, hey, there must be a source of water upstream, and you telling me, nah, that's just a theory. Maybe this water just exists here. No. No, there's definitely water. It's coming from upstream. There definitely is a deep state. And so I get kind of annoyed people start calling this a conspiracy theory when it's like a known established historical fact. It's been in the news my entire life and before I was born. And so I just thought I would mention that if I use the term or someone else uses the term, they're not necessarily nuts. Now, they might be nuts, and I might be nuts. I'm not saying I'm not nuts. I mean, I'm told you are what you eat, and I eat a lot of nuts. And so just throw that out there. Okay, anyways, thank you for watching. Don't forget to check the description for all the other things I do all over the internet. I do all kinds of weird stuff all over the internet. I write about philosophy, I write about aliens and stuff, time travel. And don't forget to hit the like button. Thank you. And thank you for watching. Boop, 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 hey.